the reality is Kennesaw is now an R2 institution. Research is God. The rewards are not there for teaching.
Right.
The only reason I think ultimately I succeeded at Kennesaw personally is that teaching emphasis allowed me the opportunity to develop things, encouraged me to do conferences, sent me out to improve myself on teaching, and that would not happen now at all.
You just heard Bill Hill, emeritus faculty from Kennesaw State University in Kennesaw, Georgia. Garth and special guest host Jane Halonen interviewed Bill for episode 231 of Psych Sessions, Conversations about Teaching and Stuff.
Hi, my name is Brooke Wisenhunt, and I'm from Missouri State University. And one of the things that excites me about STP is that I feel like that is where I found my professional home. After spending a lot of years going to other professional academic conferences, I landed at a conference full of people from STP and really felt like this was the place that were my people. And I think that that's something that you can miss out on if you don't join this organization. So go to teachpsych.org and please join and become one of these people that is a member of our community.
Psych Sessions is proud to partner with Macmillan Learning. At Macmillan Learning Psychology, content matters, and these days, digital content matters more than ever. Macmillan Learning's Achieve elevates interactive teaching and learning with an extraordinary range of online course content in a powerful yet easy-to-use platform. Interactive ebooks, innovative assessments, engaging videos and activities, helpful instructor resources. Achieve brings it all together and makes it easy for you to find what you need and what you want. See for yourself. Go to macmillanlearning.com/psych sessions for an introductory tour today. Macmillan's Achieve for Psychology, engaging every student, supporting every instructor, setting the new standard for teaching and learning. Hey everyone, it's Garth. Psych Sessions has been around for nearly a decade, offering free professional development to listeners all over the world. And we couldn't do it without your listening support, but we also need other kinds of support from our listeners. If you could go to Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen and subscribe and like the podcast, maybe even leave a review for us, it's incredibly helpful to getting out to more teachers of psychology. And did you know that Psych Sessions is a 501c3 nonprofit organization? We can do what we do because of gifts from people like you. So please head to psychsessions.org if you would like to donate today. The best way you can help us is to become a monthly donor at any level. Is Psych Sessions worth $5 a month to you? $10 a month to you? More? Please go to psychsessions.org and give whatever you think this is worth. Your gifts keep Psych Sessions free for everyone. Our goal is to have a huge impact, and you are a part of it. Thanks.
Well, folks, we are on campus at Duke University. It's 2025, and we're here for Psych 1. I'm here with my now kind of regular guest co-host.
Semi-regular.
Jane Halonen is with me, and we are from Seattle in relatively close proximity to where our guest is. But I don't know. But I don't know how long would it take us to get to Jekyll Island from here, Jane? Any ideas?
From Raleigh, Durham.
Mm-hmm.
You would know that, Bill. How long would it take?
Close to about 6 hours.
6 hours. Okay.
And we just couldn't pull it off. And so this is the next best thing. Jane and I are in a room together, and we are here today with Bill Hill. And I'm going to let Jane interview her buddy, Bill Hill, who we are so excited to have on the podcast today.
Thank you, Garth. I'm really thrilled to be able to have this podcast with Bill because I feel like he's been the missing puzzle piece as we've been assembling the old stories of people who were critical to the foundation of Division II, which became Society for the Teaching of Psychology, sometime during Bill's reign. All the things that you did. No, that was wrong. Okay.
And that was Marky Lloyd.
Okay.
I have this feeling that you and I are going to say some things today, and then Bill's gonna, with the history knowledge, is going to correct us about it. So that's what I hope to get out. Now, how do you want to just tell us where Bill taught and how you know him?
I know him because I believe we met a billion years ago at MacTop, which was one of the first regional teaching conferences that was held in University of Southern Indiana in Evansville.
Yep.
Evansville, under the leadership of Joe Palladino. We like to give him credit because he launched a lot of careers. And out of that experience, the annual fall meeting, a group coalesced and ultimately became really important leaders in the Society for Teaching of Psychology. And so that's originally how we met. Bill was at Kennesaw State at the time.
I never left Kennesaw State.
That's correct. So you did how many years was that, Bill, that you were at Kennesaw?
31.
Okay. And you played multiple roles at Kennesaw, not just faculty member, but you were chair.
I was department chair. I was an assistant dean for budget. I was assistant vice president for academic affairs. I was vice president for academic affairs for a short period as an interim. And then I took over the Center for Teaching and Learning.
And actually, that was at a time when the Center for Teaching and Learning was not a common experience.
It was a growing experience at that time.
Okay.
What's the name of the group that I'm blanking on the name of the group that developed that was directors of teacher centers. And
are you talking about POD, maybe?
Yeah, POD. Yeah, POD Network.
Yeah,
they're still running. They're still running strong.
Yeah, and I connected with them, and trying to make a long story short, we had a teaching center since Betty Siegel, the president, came. She was our second president, and she formed a teaching center, but it never really had a full-time director and resources. And I was able to finagle that when I left the vice president's office.
Were teaching centers widely done around university campuses in those days?
They were growing. I would say they were growing at that juncture. This would have been the late 1990s, early 2000s. And it seemed like they were growing. And it comes and goes with them, in my opinion, because it depends on the president and the provost, whether they survive or not. If they see them as important. In my latter years at Kennesaw in Seattle, the president didn't see us as real important, but the provost did. And he was a substantial supporter and turned to us for a lot of leadership on a number of initiatives.
Was the transition into that position, did that mean that you had to give up some of your teaching load at the time?
No, I insisted that I keep my teaching, and because I thought there was a disconnect that if I was running a center on teaching effectiveness and I wasn't in the classroom, I lost credibility. So I taught one course a semester, and at that point, I just leaned into teaching intro psych and taught intro psych for the last 8 or 9 years of my career.
Well, I think the reason that I remember this as one of the first is the reputation of the teaching center at Kennesaw was, it might not have been the first, but it was probably one of the best. So you became kind of a go-to source.
In the state of Georgia, it was.
Yeah. But I'm talking more on the national picture, that people nationally regarded what was going on at Kennesaw as cutting edge.
I'm not sure that's true.
Well, you should accept that compliment, Fred.
Okay, I'll accept it.
Okay, that's good. We might come back to
that. Because of my tendency to do conferences, which I'm sure we'll talk more about.
Yes, we will.
We became visible.
Yeah. Yes, you became very visible. And I think you were running a pretty good unit as a department head, But because you had a knack for networking and pulling people together, that really did kind of boom you up in the list of most desirable departments in the country.
Yeah, for a little while it was, and when Randy came, there were a number of people that wanted to join that department at the point that Randy became chair. Randy Smith.
Were these people who wanted to come there because of the teaching aspect, Jane? Is that what you're saying?
That would be my perception, that people saw Kennesaw as doing really interesting, positive movement in psychology rather than, frankly, bitching about whatever people were crabbing about back then. That Kennesaw was taking some very specific steps to make teaching easier and to make it more student friendly. Would you agree with that perception? I
would agree with that.
Okay.
That was a strong philosophy from the start of the department.
Yeah, it's interesting. Now in mid-career, you hear, you kind of get a feel for which colleges and universities just by name have been leading in, teaching, basically teaching psych for decades, or they just have this really strong heritage, and Kennesaw is definitely up there. It's one of the ones that I hear about all the time. Yeah. So that must be you.
Well,
that must be your fault.
I think at that point, with the leadership, initially the first chair was Ruth Hepler. The emphasis was on teaching at the university and within the department. And there was a real effort with Ruth and the initial group of people that were there to recruit toward that. And they did that quite effectively for probably 15 years or so.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of regional comprehensive universities, the push of late is for regionals to try to move up the chain of Carnegie. And so the emphasis on teaching tends to get a little bit lost as people now get encouraged to get grants and do other things that simulate R1 activities. And so it's hard to know whether Bill, and we're not going to ask this, be hard to know if you would be as proud of Kennesaw in its present form, because I suspect there's been drift from that original commitment.
APA Publishing is offering 15% off for Psych Sessions listeners. Looking for fresh, effective resources to enhance your psychology teaching? The American Psychological Association publishes peer-reviewed, science-backed titles written by trusted experts in our field. For hands-on strategies to bring the dynamic field of positive psychology to life, check out More Activities for Teaching Positive Psychology. If you're looking for help reimagining how to teach our field's most popular course, Transforming Introductory Psychology is grounded in the latest research and pedagogy. And for faculty navigating the demands of academic life, Thriving in Academia provides evidence-based guidance for long-term success. These titles are ideal for psych instructors, grad students, and administrators looking for resources that support both teaching and career growth. Visit apa.org and use promo code PS15 at checkout for 15% off your order.
Substantial, in my opinion.
Oh, okay. Well, he's not going to be shy about expressing his opinion, and that's good.
No, I mean, the reality is Kennesaw is now an R2 institution.
Mm-hmm.
And research is God.
Yeah, it takes a toll on people like us.
Yeah, and the rewards are not there for teaching.
Right.
The only reason I think ultimately I succeeded at Kennesaw personally is that teaching emphasis allowed me the opportunity to develop things, encouraged me to do conferences, sent me out to improve myself on teaching, and that would not happen now at all.
Not easily. It would not happen easily.
Can I ask you both a question about what we're seeing at some four-year institutions now, even R1s, are teaching track faculty. Mm-hmm. Is that a new thing, and where does that fit into this conversation?
Well, I can answer that we are in our department, which is a regional comprehensive move to R2, just like Kennesaw. We now have what are called practice or clinical lines in our department. Now, I think maybe 2 or 3 years. And people differ, departments differ on how they treat that entity, that sometimes those people are really regarded as second-class citizens because they don't do research. Or they do SOTL research, and SOTL research doesn't get respect in an R1 emerging kind of perspective. So I think it's growing because as an administrator, you get a lot more teaching bang for your buck if you've got people who are teaching a 4-4 clinical load than a 3-3 plus research load. So the long-term picture is we're likely to see more of that and more use of adjuncts to support the juggernaut that higher education has become. I don't know if you want to add to that, Bill.
I agree with just about all of that. I think particularly what bothers me is the tendency that I see in some places where this develops is, as you put, Jane, the teaching people become second-class citizens. It almost reminds me of the complaint we had about undergraduate departments a lot when we did program reviews, that you had the students that were highly valued that were going toward graduate school, and then the students that weren't graduate school oriented.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is the teaching people. I think they've gotten to a point where their research is more respected, but what's not respected is they can't generate bucks.
Correct.
Grants are not there for that group of people. There is a competitiveness in that group to get into journals in teaching, but there is not grant money that is of any significance. And with state budgets cutting back for higher education, what the screw up is in the federal government now, being able to generate money is critical.
Well, and if you're a SOTL kind of person, the writing that you do is not going to generate money unless you go into textbook writing. And then it has to be a highly successful textbook for it to be money. And that money won't come back to the university. So there's no incentive for the university to honor that. It's a little bit of a mess. I do want to come back to program review because I have very fond memories of a program review you and I did jointly together many years ago. But typically, what we try to do in the podcast is get a little bit of backstory. Mm-hmm. So we'd like to do that with you now.
Keep me on target because I'll wander as I get older. My mind wanders totally.
Well, I don't think I've ever experienced you as a mind wandering kind of guy, but I'll keep my eye on you just in case. So the question I have for you is, did you always want to be a professor? Did you always want to be a psychologist? Where did that inspiration come from?
I wanted to be a teacher.
Okay.
I knew that. And one of my early influences was a world history teacher in high school, Ann Timmy. And she was just an amazing teacher, and she inspired me. And I liked the social sciences. So when I went to college at UGA, I decided I wanted to be a teacher, one. And two, I very quickly understood that I did not want to go to the College of Education and become a high school teacher. That didn't interest me. I wanted what I saw as more flexibility and freedom. So I wandered through the social sciences my first year and a half or so until I took a intro psych course from Dick Hazen at the University of Georgia. And I think in my experience, Dick Hazen actually was one of the first ones that we just sort of described a faculty member that was purely devoted to undergraduate teaching at UGA. All the rest of them at UGA were grant-oriented, publication-oriented. Dick could care less about that. And he worked hard with the students, and he saw a lot of, through intro and research methods, which he taught, he saw a lot of the early students. He inspired me a lot. And so I ended up choosing psychology and got a strong mentor and supporter in Dave Leonard, who became my major professor ultimately for graduate school.
Could I ask you just about, just going back to not wanting to go to the College of Education, what was it that felt restrictive and how did you know that? Because when I was an undergraduate, I was so naive to how this whole world worked, but what gave you the idea that this was a place you didn't want to be versus pursuing something in the social sciences?
I knew at that point that there were a lot of regulations and guidance from the state and restrictions on what you could and could not do. A lot more of what I considered wasted time on curriculum programs and so on that were mandated in ways by the state and federal government. And a lot of didn't make that much money. I mean, neither did I when I first started. But
do you remember what your starting salary was as a professor?
$13,000.
That was quick. That was really quick. I just asked that because I wonder if that's a thread we'll end up following as we hear your story of just not wanting to be, or maybe let me spin it this way, wanting to be free to be innovative and to take chances and to try some things out. And we've already heard from all the roles you played at Kennesaw that it sounds like you can't keep doing one thing for a long time. That you
I've been accused of that.
Yeah, okay, good.
Well,
So
and
glad.
we didn't get into the multiple roles that he played in APA activities, including convention affairs and guidelines.
Yeah, and convention structure. I was on group doing that. But I think, yes, it appears, Garth, that I switch things, but I look at it more as I go into a job or a responsibility, and I have a goal in my mind of what I want to achieve. And at some point, I achieve that goal. And I don't see a reason for me to occupy a chair as a leader in some area when other people need a chance to move up and get their vision.
That is such good. I know it didn't come across as advice, but that is such good advice to people like me and I think mid-career folks who don't know how to leave something. I think you end up getting stuck in positions and it becomes identity focused or identity centered. And you think that without these roles, and I'll just speak from personal experience of somebody who just took on more and more and more, you think that you will not find the next thing if you exit out of a role. But I really love this. It reminds me, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I think the second one is start something with the end in mind. Mm-hmm. So have a plan and have an exit plan, because once you achieve it, you're done.
I can't say I had an exit plan except to know that this was a closure point, and staying with it doesn't add anything to whatever I was working on. But then opportunities, to follow up on what you were saying about something happening, I don't think I deliberately said, okay, I want to eventually be Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs. But I did the department chair thing. And the dean at that time recognized I had a statistical mathematical bent and brought me in as assistant to help her manage budget issues. And then even though I had strongly disagreed with him on a number of things, including, I'll never forget throwing papers across the table at him because I thought he was an asshole. You can cut that out. But he saw something in me that he felt complimented him, and came to me and when that position opened and asked me to take it. And we talked long and hard about, not back to the point of having freedom, that I wasn't going to be a coat and tie, come in sort of assistant VP, and here's what I wanted. And he said, fine. And we got along. I still argued with him, but we got along very well. And I think accomplished a number of things. And ultimately, one of those was getting the resources for the center.
I think I want to underscore the principle here, especially for listeners who are mid-career trying to figure out those rules, that good administrators coordinate, delegate, pull people in who compensate for what they're not so good at doing. Garth is really good at doing that, by the way. And bad ones try to hire people that make them look good because they're stupider. And that never goes well. And you would think people would be smart enough to go with plan A instead of plan B, but we see it all the time in higher ed, that just not understanding that principle. So I think you were, out of the cohort of people that I grew up with professionally, were you the first one to say, I'm out, I retire? I think you might have been.
No, Steve Davis.
Oh, Steve Davis. Okay. Yeah. So that would make you number 2. The other question is, you've been retired for how many years now?
15.
And by all reports, it's been a very successful transition.
Yeah.
How did you do that?
Yeah. I was tempted to just send you to the article I wrote. I wrote a chapter on retirement for Dana Dunn's Oxford Psychology Handbook.
Okay.
And I can tell you what I did and why it was successful for me, but it might not work for Garth and it might not work for you because we're different people.
Sure. Well, tell us what you did.
Well, I decided that the time was here. And my wife, who taught at Kennesaw, also at the same time felt the time was right. We were able, I didn't want to just say, okay, June 30th is my retirement date and walk out the door. And I was able to negotiate a transition thing where I did special projects for the VP's office and mentored the fellow that replaced me as director. Became quite close to him. And I did that for about 4 years, doing part-time stuff. It progressively became less and less.
That's a nice model, not available to everyone.
No, it's not, but it is a successful model. And the literature shows that out, that's out there on retirement, that when you can transfer, depending on the person you are, some people want to walk out the door and never look back.
And now you're talking about Ludi Benjamin.
I was going to say the same. Yes.
That's it. Some become disenchanted. And Ludi is, I think, from what I know, he became disenchanted with APA.
You could put it that way, yes.
And other people, and I'm going to use examples, and I don't think they'll mind. Steve left what I thought was very abrupt for Steve and walked away from it largely. And that was because his wife had some heart issues. So sometimes it's your health issues,
right?
Your significant other's health issues that make you realize you need to devote your time somewhere else.
Well, and sometimes people have said that to be a successful retiree, you have to retire to something. Did you feel like you had a goal in mind?
I retired to this transition. I continued doing the Southeast Conference on Teaching Psych for another 2 years, and the Georgia Conference for another 2 years. I was heavily involved in the APA convention and the Board of Convention Affairs at that time, and that lasted for another 2 or 3 years. So I knew I had some transition things to give me some time to figure out additional things. I knew that I wanted to do some things that I hadn't done.
So when you were free of psychology, you had no more obligations either.
I'm not free of psychology.
What are you doing now?
The thing that's closest to psychology is I became active in the Rotary Club here on Jekyll Island, which is a very unique Rotary Club because basically I live in a retirement community, even though it's not technically. And every one of these guys are retired pilots or educators. And so we do a lot of volunteers. So one guy had started a STEM program at a local elementary school. And I got involved in that and have coordinated that for the last 5 years. And twice with it's third, fourth, and fifth grade students after school. And we go in and do STEM projects. And I've been doing sensation and perception projects. And let's see, I do the eye and smell and taste.
How fun.
In the fall, I do the eye, smell, and taste. In the spring. And I even developed a, based on the M&M's probability demonstration we use, I developed a demonstration for kids that age that we now do on probability for third and fourth graders. And they're real motivated because they get the candy and all that stuff. So I love doing that. And that's to me, I'm still teaching. I would not go and teach part-time again.
No.
It sounds like you are also still using that skill set of, because I think when you started talking about Rotary and that STEM program at the elementary school, that you're organizing it. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So you've been organizing things probably your entire career, and probably before that, if we go back to even
high school.
Yep, exactly.
What did you organize in high school?
I organized, this was in 1967, 68. And happy early birthday, Jane.
Thank you.
Rock bands were big. And a thing that was going on, especially in the Atlanta area, was a battle of the bands activities. And you'd coordinate with WQXI, which was a rock radio station, pop radio station. I and the president of the National Honor Society at my high school organized a battle of the bands. And it was highly successful. And this is going to be Bill Hill nerd, I was president of the science club at that point. And
that guarantees nerd status. It does.
I totally financed a trip to what's the Alabama Science Rocket Center?
Was it Huntsville?
Huntsville, yes.
Huntsville. Okay. It was in there. It was just a very long neuron. It took a while to come up.
I love that long neuron. Yeah. That's incredible.
So that was the first organizational thing I did.
I bet you it's not. I bet you if you go back, you find something even earlier than that, because I don't know. I mean, I don't want to tell you about your life, but I have just thought a lot about this for folks to look, I think it's helpful for us to look back over our lives, especially early mid-career, because we've been in this pipeline through graduate school, trying to get these teaching jobs. It's you're playing somebody else's game, but then all of a sudden something happens where you get a little more freedom in maybe mid-career, and you think, well, what is my unique contribution to things? I love hearing this thread through your life of being able to organize things, finding value. I imagine it was a lot of fun for you to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I did probably well over 30 teaching conferences in my career.
I think you were the program manager for APA as one of
I was
for STP's.
For STP, I was a program chair.
Was that your first?
Right before you.
Yeah. Was that your first experience doing psych conference planning?
Well, I was a reviewer for APA. No, it was, I can't remember the exact dates. It was 89 when I started CTOP.
Okay. And what inspired you to start the Southeastern teaching of psych?
Joe Palladino.
Okay.
I mean, his conference was a very successful thing. You saw the need for it when you were there. And that model at that time was critical because people couldn't travel long distances as easy.
And the resources were meager.
Yeah. So regional conferences, and within 5 years of Joe's conference, you had a number of people that started it. There was the Southwest Conference that Randy and Steve did, my conference. Barney started the New England Conference.
Mhm.
James Madison did a
Eastern.
Mid-Atlantic,
Yep.
and I may be missing others, but it was a prolific time for these things to pop up, and they drew from that immediate region and provided a opportunity for those people that would never have seen APA.
Right.
I discovered STP and that community at APA, but once you left that little bubble at APA, there wasn't anything out there. And it was a vein of gold.
Did you have much difficulty getting support from the admin at Kennesaw to do CTOP?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. It was always funding itself. I paid for it. It didn't cost them anything, and made them a little bit of money because in the early years, continuing ed ran it and they charged me a fee.
Mm-hmm.
But I never lost money on it.
Okay.
And that the only one that really lost money and was somewhat problematic was one of the
Best practices.
The best practice one on technology.
Oh.
It surprised me, but it didn't draw worth a damn.
Huh.
And we came in well under what we needed to come in, and we had to use. Over the years, I had made so much money, I just kind of set it aside in an account as a just in case account, and we used up most of that.
Wow.
Can I ask some questions about best practices since we're on it? Because I don't think I ever attended a best practices. Maybe
you were too young.
One of the last ones. But can we just tell folks can you tell me
yes, we can tell
where that started? What the original idea was and how it ran over the years?
Wait just a second. I'll show you how it started.
Okay. Sorry, viewers or listeners, you're not going to be able to see this.
Yes, and while he's doing whatever he's doing, it did grow out of the James Madison Psychology Partnerships Project. Oh, here we go. This is a picture of the group that Bill and I were part of as we came to be known as the Assessment All-Stars. And so you can see some very familiar faces: Kristen Whitlock, Dana Dunn.
Younger version, very familiar.
Yeah, Maureen McCarthy, Ted Bosak, Ken Weaver, Rob McIntyre. And the best part about this, I was on the steering committee that assigned people. No one wanted to be on the assessment group except Maureen McCarthy. She was the only one who was, most of us had assessment responsibilities. We were looking for a different kind of stimulation, but because the steering committee said assessment is so important, we have to assign people to this group who are flexible collaborators. And so damn, if we didn't get the most functional, it was clearly the most functional group there. So much so that when we had a reunion a year after this was over in APA, we were lamenting the fact that people could not experience how great it was to have that synergy with people that you didn't know well, but to produce a book chapter. And so in this meeting, this is a crystal memory for me. I don't know who said, maybe we should have a conference about assessment. And Bill went, oh, well, let me see what I can do. He slipped out of the room, called a hotel. And before we left the meeting, this is the way I remember it, we had a commitment to, we're going to do a best practice in assessment. And that ultimately evolved into the annual conference on teaching. So we're the grandparents of the annual conference on teaching. Is it close to what you remember?
I'd say we're the parents.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, we're parents.
Well, that's incredible.
It was more successful than we ever imagined.
It was wildly successful.
Okay, I've got a bunch of questions. So what year was that picture? And by the way, can somebody take a picture of that picture and I can put it into the
try to, but
I can send you. I've got it. I can send it to you. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd have to take apart the whole frame to get
No, I've got it covered. We're good. So what year would that have been? Let's see, 1998.
Was it that late?
Yeah, because I just started my job at JMU, and I did that in 98. I think it was 98.
Late 90s then?
Yeah, late 90s.
27 years. And so that ran best practice as it ran for.
It ran best practice for what, 6 or 7 theme years?
No, it was longer than that.
Was it
I
that?
did
Assessment,
6 or
critical
7 of them.
thinking,
Because
intro.
just to fill in a little bit of a gap.
Yeah.
The first best practices was run by just this group. STP had nothing to do with it except for giving us a small donation because they didn't have the money at that time.
Right.
So it was just this group of people. And after that, we brought in STP for the second one and subsequent ones. And that also evolved into this enormous growth in programming because we did a number of things. And that's where we developed the director of programming at STP that I took on for 5 years. So I did at least 6, maybe 7 of these. And then Janie took over as director of programming, and she continued the best practices for a number of years. But that sort of ran out.
Yeah, I think there was a paradigm shift of not only moving it out of Atlanta to make it more accessible to other people, which at the time I wasn't happy about, but I think it's turned out well. But I still feel a little, I don't know, dismissed by moving it from best practice because it allowed a group of practitioners to get together to focus on a specific problem, which is how things started out.
I miss that notion. I understand what they did, but that was also, in my mind, part of the move away from going to the APA convention.
Right. And that has truly transpired that people don't tend to go to APA as regularly for the teaching conference fix as they go to annual conference.
Right.
Yeah. What's it like to see things that you invested in kind of continue on, but also change and adapt and not be what maybe you intended them to be? Is that hard, Bill?
No, I have no problem letting go of that because it's new people. You've got to understand that letting go is essential to life. You're not going to be here forever. And you can only try and make an impact, have a legacy, do the right thing in the moment. And sometimes what you do in the moment does continue on. So yes, I do like the fact that this conference is still there. I don't like certain things about it.
Yeah. I don't know who we can talk to about that.
Garth is now the director of the
I know he's the director.
So you can
I do my homework.
You can sort of complain to him offline and that will work.
No, I do.
It's not. Let's see. What am I trying to say? It's that some people don't see the breadth of what happens in the teaching of psychology, and that it's a domino effect that if you mess with one thing, it can affect negatively or positively other things.
And unintended consequences can just be a killer. Yeah.
Personal peeve. I believe that moving it to a general conference killed CTOP.
Because CTOP was playing that general conference role.
CTOP played that general conference role in that region. And when it moved to ACT, it still stayed in Atlanta for a number of years. And people didn't want to go to 2 conferences in Atlanta in the same year.
Yep.
Well, CTOP, CTOP is still.
Little pet peeve. I know you may want to cut that out.
No, I don't think so.
No, this is great.
And CTOP is still alive.
Yes.
And
I'm not sure how much longer it will be because Karen's leaving.
She's retiring.
Yeah.
Oh, we're poaching.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know whether somebody's there that will step into that.
Yeah, I haven't talked with her about that, but I know that her conference this year was successful. I attended it the year before. It was.
I've heard good things about it.
Yeah, she's done a good job, but the presence is very small compared to what the old CTOP was. So I think that reinforces the point that it at least had a suppressive effect.
I think if you look at the attendance figures,
yeah,
I heard about once ACT came in on the scene, the attendance figures declined substantially for CTOP over years.
Can you tell us?
The other thing is, I hate personalities, but my personality was largely tied to CTOP, and I think the people that followed me didn't have the visions and the behavior that I had that helped. I do believe that what I did helped. I'll be egotistic and take that.
Well, there's a little bit of an irony here too, because when I went to CTOP, I noticed that the tribute lecture is now named after you, when you named it after Harold Moon, right?
Yeah.
And that has gotten lost.
For a while, both were there. Harold was the opening, and I was.
Yeah, I hope I'm not misstating that, but I looked for it and I thought, I don't know if Bill would be happy about displacing.
No, things move on.
Yeah, okay.
And a lot of people, 20. God, I hate to say that long. 20, 25 years ago, a lot of people knew who I was.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know who I was.
Well, that's what we're trying to fix with the podcast, actually.
Well, and that's true. And I will say that we wanted to also just ask you of your recollection for the Bill Hill keynote talk at ACT. How did that come about, and who did you give permission to?
I don't remember whether it was Janie or someone, whoever followed Janie. I don't have a strong recollection who followed Janie. It may have been Janie that did that. And I'm sure that the executive committee had something to do with it. But that disappeared too. I know that.
No, it's still on. The Bill Hill talk still exists at ACT. Yeah. Okay. But could I ask you a question about that? Because I think we are missing a little history. And so as the incoming director, I don't know how exactly to ask this question, but
just ask it.
Well, what would you want that talk to value?
Oh, that's a great question.
Community.
Yeah.
To me, that's what those conferences were all about, is building community. And building community also builds friendships and relationships that feed our souls. I mean, the relationship over the years with Jane has been a major thing in my life, my professional life. And the same can be said with a number of people. The key group, well, we call ourselves the Psych Brothers. I'll try not to make it. Steve Davis, Randy Smith, Bill Buskus, Barney Bynes,
Dave
Johnson, and one more whom I miss. And now Ken Keith came in after the first year. Now that all happened because of Randy Smith and Steve Davis. We had become close, back to what Jane said, at MacTop was where we all met. And then we moved into APA and that mafia thing that you talk about.
Yep. We were known as the APA
mafia. I know that people perceived us that way, but that is a negative connotation that always bothered me. Anyway, Randy Smith's wife at that time got Lou Gehrig's disease, and she passed away. And most of those people, at least half of those people, up and went to Texas for her funeral. And that meant a lot to him, Randy, and it meant a lot to Steve too, I think, because by that time Steve had retired and was feeling some isolation. So Steve said we need to support Randy, and about a month later, he invited us to his house, and all his people came, and we just sat around and told stories and enjoyed each other's company, bemoaned the fact that we were aging and we didn't see each other as much because we didn't go to conferences. And so we just said, well, let's do this every year. And this past April was our 16th time for doing that.
And you post regularly on Facebook, so you can tell that the boys are having a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And except we missed Steve because Steve got to a point health-wise that he really couldn't travel. But we actually have a weekly Zoom call.
Do you? I didn't know that.
6 of us. Buskus will not get on the internet, but the other 6 of us show up, and that we started that during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm so happy that
you get me on tangents. I warned you.
No,
that's tangent.
We'll pull you back. I'm so happy that your legacy at ACT is going to remain through that Bill Hill talk, and you'll be happy to know that this year the speaker, one of the first speakers that I was able to select, is Nick Epley from the University of Chicago, who's a social psychologist, and he is giving a talk that is going to kind of fulfill that answer of building community. Yeah, it's really, I can't wait for it. It's going to be really, really fun. Right. So we'll be thinking of you. Feel free to drop in Minneapolis.
Yeah. So a slight change in direction. You were involved in the national guidelines, standards thingies that we worked on. And what I recall about your contributions to that process is that you had an unusual commitment to internationalizing psychology long before it became the thing to do. Can you talk a little bit about why internationalizing psychology was important to you?
Let me preface that with a lot of the activities that I've talked about for myself so far and into this are prefaced on 2 things: my interest personally in something and an influence of a significant person or persons that mentored me and in some cases supported me to achieve that. I became interested in it when I was doing my doctoral exams.
Wow.
And at the University of Georgia for the experimental program, which no longer exists. Nobody calls us experimental psychologists anymore. Our doctoral exams where they gave us a set of like 24 questions, and we were to choose 3 of those questions. And we had a little over a month to write a publishable article that would appear. What was the journal that had the synthesis articles back in the day? Psych Review.
Psych Review. Yeah.
It was a Psych Review quality article, and we had about a month to choose that question, research it, and write a publishable article.
That's really hardcore.
I think it's much better than an oral exam because it makes you hone your research skills, your evaluative skills, and the skills that are going to be the ones you use as a professional. Anyway, one of the questions was, just make it short, does language influence thought? And obviously that leads you into cross-cultural things and looking at that research, which I had never really done. And it fascinated me, and I discovered who wrote that question. Usually that was anonymous, a fellow named Ernst von Glossersfeld, and he was a Piagetian. And I took a course from him, became interested in this stuff. He mentored me a bit. And then when I got to Kennesaw, I had this interest. This is in 1979. And Ruth Hepler was very supportive of things. And I came across one of those trips I used to take in the late 70s and early 80s, that there was this company that organized professional tours places. And this was a professional tour of the Soviet Union just for psychologists. And she got me the funding from the university to go on that.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I met some people that had that similar interest, and it just sort of moved from there that I was encouraged and supported to develop a cross-cultural psych course in the early 80s, which was very unusual in the early 80s, and went from there.
Yeah, it struck me at the time that we were a little bit ahead of our time. Clearly now, with Guidelines 3.0, both of us worked on Guidelines 3.0. There was a pretty big push to treat international issues in a much more in-depth way. And there's now a comparable group that is working on, let's call it global standards. And I think we probably both contributed to that. So there's been a real evolution, but I really saw the first commitment of that coming from you. That was helpful.
There were others that had bigger names that were out there.
But not on the guidelines specifically.
Okay, not on the guidelines.
It was you. Yeah. And sometimes in task forces like that, you get people who have, we might call it a hobby horse. It's like, this is the thing that's important to me. That was important to you, and you held our feet to the fire to make sure that was represented in the guidelines. And so I thought that was really useful.
I had two hobby horses, that and career development for non-graduate students.
Which continues to be the main thrust of every revision of guidelines. It's like, we're still not doing this right. Can we please take workforce psychology more seriously? So I think we made some strides with the last one, but who knows? I'm wondering, from the vantage point you have now, is there anything that you're worried about in higher education? Are you worried about the state of the higher ed union enterprise?
It is at the upper leadership, president level in particular, becoming too politicized. We have a number of places where, in Georgia's a perfect example, where the state system is given over to a politician.
We're experiencing that as well in Florida.
Yes, I know. And presidencies are given to politicians for whatever reason, to pull them aside from some other office or just to make them happy in some way.
Right.
And I think that's problematic. I think we have a long history in higher education of being able to find people that have an academic base and can still play in the politics world. But when you have politicians that have no academic base playing in the academic world, I think that's problematic, and sets up potential for conflicts within that particular institution.
We're certainly seeing that in Florida right now. We're in the Chronicle a lot. And our governor recently got mad at our university and said, we better buckle up. And we don't know what that means. So we're sort of facing the future going, oh my God, the things that we love about our university could change because so much is out of our control. So I entirely agree with that as a concern.
Well, it happened to Kennesaw. There was a couple-year period where they, I think it was the person that replaced Dan Papp. He came in, he was a politician, and I think he was given, my impression is he was given the presidency of Kennesaw so he wouldn't run for a statewide office.
Yeah, strategic choice.
That was a horrible failure for the institution.
Yeah, and it's hard to imagine that a politician would see the potential sacrifice of a major institution in the state as just satisfying some political agenda, but it happens all the time.
Yeah, at the Regents level for us, Honey Purdue is not, doesn't know a higher education. So that, I think, technology, I mean, I dealt with technology for most of my career. I was there before computers, but they came in early in my career. But just what you all had to go through during the pandemic, I can't imagine that.
It was awful. It was awful.
And I couldn't have done it. I really couldn't have done it because I lack a critical skill. You know what? I can't type.
I didn't remember that about you. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, I do remember that about you.
You talked about doing a review with me, and you sat there and did all the typing. Well,
that's right.
Because this is the way I type, and so I could not have.
This is the way means 2 fingers, 2 index fingers up, and yes, a very slow typist. I think we did a review at, was it Austin P?
Austin P. That's where we met Maureen.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I learned from that review, I think it's the only time we worked together on a review. But we finished the review and wrote the report before we left campus. Do you remember that? Right. And that established for me, that's the way I want to do a review, is get in there, get her done, get it off your desktop, dazzle the people that get the review because they're not used to getting it that early. And there was just something about the synergy of how we worked. I really found that helpful. So if you were advising people mid-early career who get an opportunity to do a program review, would you recommend that, or what steps might you suggest to them to get ready?
Yeah, I would recommend that.
Okay. Because what would they learn?
It depends on who they're doing the review with.
You're a big "it depends on" guy.
It does. I'm a very other-oriented people, sort of.
Yeah.
It's
okay. Best circumstances. Under the best circumstances, what should someone learn from doing an academic program review as the reviewer?
They should go into there with the attitude that they can learn something they can take back to their own department and improve it. Look for those pieces of gold in that. Understand that that department's context is important, and it's not the same as your context. There may be similarities and maybe things that suggest. Don't do reviews until you know what the lay of the world. If you don't know what the outcomes are, you shouldn't be doing reviews. So you need to be exposed to some of that literature through either reading or other people that you interact with before doing the review.
Yeah, I know. I have worked with a variety of reviewers, and when the review match is good, it's some of the most fun you can have. And when the review match is bad, it's really awful when your work styles don't mesh, when there's a tendency for the reviewer to say, well, what we do at my institution is like, that's not what your job is in this circumstance. Yeah.
If you can say what they do at other successful institutions.
That's the job. That's the job. Yeah.
I know that we're coming up to our time, but Jane, you had a bunch of things I know that you had been thinking about. Now that we've got Bill here, is there anything that you want to cover before we finish up here?
Yeah, I would just ask one last question, and that is, Division II really was a significant force in your life. What do you think is the most meaningful thing that you extracted from your involvement with now what would be the Society for Teaching of Psychology? And why would our listeners who are not part of STP, why would you encourage them to get involved?
Friendships. That's some of the most meaningful friends I've had in my life came from that.
Mm-hmm.
And they still, in some way or another, connect to my life. So the fact that you could get someone like Randy, who had his wife die very tragically from ALS, And people from close to him from all over the country came down to be with him at that funeral. There's not a lot of that happens anywhere else. And when I talk to colleagues in other disciplines, they're just flabbergasted that there's those relationships in my career.
Mm-hmm.
They may have seen and known people that they ran into it every year at a convention, but it didn't extend beyond that convention.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we tend to end these with an opportunity for you to talk about anything else that you think might be relevant for people, especially people who don't know you, that we didn't cover. Is there anything on the hit list that we didn't touch on that you'd like to speak to?
Not really. I mean, you hit a lot of the main topics I thought about in preparing myself.
I'd like to jump in just with a final question for me, because I'm interested, like you, I think I'm somebody who has many, many interests, and I have ideas about things to do, and I follow most of those. And so I'm quite busy, and I'm busy in the teaching of psychology world. Sometimes it feels like I've taken on like a little too much. But it's
all the time.
Well,
all the time.
But it's also all like tremendous amount of fun. And I'll just say that your experience with your friends, making this group of friends that really was probably some fuel for you to keep investing in service to STP. That I have had that same experience with friendships at STP, and so it's in some ways it's hard and it's a lot, and I'm very busy. In other ways, it's all a gift. Do you ever look back and think that you wouldn't have invested so much time into that? Or maybe what lessons have you learned about where you should have invested your time and where you shouldn't?
I think it's more to what I started with. It's a matter of the individual's personality. And I was oriented very early in my life to wanting to teach, wanting to mentor people, sense of community, and support people to be successful. And that's, if I look back at legacy, the opportunities I've had and taken to support people that I see ultimately became successful. Now, they're the ones that made that success for themselves, but I opened the door. And I think the people in my life that said, here's the door, I've opened it, now you got to walk through and you got to do something with it. But another thing, and Jane remembers her, Lynn Laminack,
mm-hmm.
my assistant. She came in as my secretary when I went to be the associate dean and an associate VP. And she stayed with me for close to 16 years. And I encouraged her to go get her master's degree, her MBA. And she successfully did that. And I supported the time she needed to do that. And she is now a vice president at Kennesaw in charge.
Isn't that great?
Academic records.
Huh.
And so she did it because she's an amazing woman. And I wouldn't have been successful without her. You know that. But she saw it was time to move on. She got this position and she's made a significant, and I don't think she would have done the master's without that, me helping open that door.
That's a great example. Yep.
And I try and do that all the time.
And wildly successful at it too, I have to say.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Well, we are so fortunate to have been able to have this conversation with you, Bill. Psych Sessions, out of all the roles that Psych Sessions plays, one of them is to really capture some of the voices in history in the teaching of psychology. And it would not have been the same without having you in our library. So I want to thank you for opening all those doors for us. It is our honor to have the Bill Hill keynote talk at ACT still and to remember that legacy going forward of what makes STP really special, and that is relationships and community, and just around teaching of psychology. It's a really special place, and you have done a great job of kind of mentoring us through that. So thanks for your role in that. Any final words, Jane?
No, I'm just happy to see Bill. It's great to see you.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Garth, and good luck in October.